Yes, but it's good to go. We're recording
We can start.
and our live stream is happening.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to call the IDA meeting to order. Leo,
Sure. Ms. Laughlin?
here.
Ms. Laughlin present. Mr. Sykes?
Here.
Mr. Sykes is present. Ms. Roy?
Here.
Mr. Pig is present. Mr. Stingle is absent. Mr. Smith is absent. Mr. Gunther is absent.
What is
Hey.
No, I lost a few pounds.
I apologize. Mr. Brooks? Mr. Brooks.
Yeah.
Mr. Valone?
Yep.
Mr. Valone is present. Ms. Lara?
Okay.
And we have Will Frank. I think he's just on his way in. He's on the Zoom, but he'd be here in a
Oh,
moment.
Will's coming in.
Yes.
Do we need, but we don't need Will from the beginning,
No.
so we can get started. Okay. So the first item of business is to approve the minutes from June 12th. So did everybody get a chance to take a look at those?
So move.
Any, you've got motion,
I'll second.
any edits, corrections? No, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted. Bills and communications, I see we have a new, no, that's the LBC, sorry. That's, so it's what's in our packet, right?
Yep.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to look at that? And if so, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Ed,
Second.
Second.
Bill second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We will now move on. Well, there's also a staff report and a quarterly report that was in the packet. Jen, do you want to present anything, or does anyone have any questions they want to ask Jen and Julio and team about?
There's nothing really remarkable in the quarterly report. We're pretty much where we expected to be. But I can take any questions, or if you'd like, I'd be happy to go through it.
And the financial report?
Right, that's
Same.
it's pretty much as
Yep.
expected.
I agree.
But if you have questions, or again, I can summarize if you
Does
like.
anybody have any questions? Doesn't require a motion, but anybody have anything they'd like to talk about? No? Okay. So we're gonna move on to new business, and our first item is a presentation from Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development Corp. Mary Ann, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. It's usually Todd, so I'm going to try to live up to Todd's standards. My name is Mary Ann Johnson, and I am the Deputy Director of Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development Corporation. I joined HVAC in 2010. And in 2010, we had one program, and now we have many. So it's been quite an evolution, and I've been very happy to be a part of it. I've given you all a handout. This sort of summarizes our activities through the years, and it points out that our focus, right, the graphic right there on the top, that we try to be providing integrated services all around supporting farm and food businesses here in the Hudson Valley in an effort to promote community development. Brand new this year, though, which I'm really proud to highlight, is we have achieved our Community Development Financial Institution certification. That allows us to provide access to capital for underserved communities, low to moderate income, census tracts identified by the U.S. Treasury Department, and communities of color. So that was a big deal. It was about 5 years in the making, and we were really pleased to be a part of this CDFI community. That's the big news. Our traditional programming, the Incubator Without Walls, is what we started out with. Again, that was started in 2007. To date, we have assisted over 300 businesses in the region, 45 alone here in Sullivan County over the years. And this past year, I would say it's 5 or 6, depending on what the cutoff date is, because you guys are, I think, August to July. And through that programming, we provide one-on-one business technical assistance, and that can be just about any challenge an entrepreneur or business owner has in the ag and food space, ranging from marketing to business planning to, quite frankly, we have a dairy equipment expert that we can call on occasionally to help us out. It is our mainstay program. In 2020, we started lending And we have two funding sources. That is through the state, the JDA. We are intermediary lender. And then we received a grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Economic Development Agency, with some funding. Overall, that funding gives us about $3 million that we can do, and we're doing revolving loans. It's primarily for equipment and working capital, although we can do bridge loans if we know. We've done some where we knew there was a takeout. They had a state grant or a grant coming. They needed some money to get going, and we were able to provide that funding, and then they could get their project done, get their state reimbursement, and repay us. So we've done that. We've done 8 loans since 2020, and that includes 1 in Sullivan County, 2 Murray's Chapter. The funding corp has been a partner on some of those that project, and we look to use our funding in conjunction with other funding, public and private, to make these projects happen. We currently have about $300,000 being considered by our loan committee. We have another 200 being inquired, and 1 that's gone off to underwriting. So we're really happy that money is moving out the door. It makes a big difference. Hudson Valley Bounty, you were some of the first people to see our new logo. We have revamped, we're in the process of revamping our online searchable database that promotes marketing and agritourism for farm and food businesses, craft beverage, specialty food makers in our 8-county region. The current website is dated. Some of the functionality is broken, and it was time to do a new one. And we're hoping to launch that in the next month or so. We've been doing quite a bit of outreach to get people to update their listings. They're free to businesses. They can join. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of people get in there and then they forget about it. So we've been trying really hard to get them on the phone or email, text, any way we can get a hold of them and say, hey, this is your opportunity to update this information and make it brand new. So that's our new logo and the website next month or 2, I hope. And we're really, that's another exciting project. That website, even with its broken issues, gets anywhere from 2,000 hits per month, in the slow months, to 10 or 12 in the fall, when people are really looking to be out and doing, pick your own and going to farm to table restaurants, etc. Our last program, Feed HV, that's our regional food rescue program. To date, we started in late 2017. We rescued over 500,000 pounds of food directly. I would say we rescued probably another 50,000 or more in facilitated donations where we made the connection, but we didn't actually move the food, which is also part of the network. That equates to almost 429,000 meals that have been people have had access to in the region. Sullivan County, we currently have 4 volunteers, 4 donors, and 22 agencies. Sullivan County has been a little bit of a challenge. It's for donors. It has not been a challenge for finding people who need food. And we've been working closely with Cooperative Extension, has had several meetings over the past at least year, maybe more, bringing the agencies together and trying to do more of a coordinated effort. Feed HV kind of fills some holes. And the way it works is we have an app. You sign up on our app as a donor or a volunteer or an agency. The donor lists a food run. The app then emails out to people in the area to say, hey, we have this food run. You can pick it up on Thursday or Friday between 10 and 2. The volunteer grabs it and says, yes, I'm going to be the one to take that to whatever agency the program matches it up with. It is small amounts of food. You're asking people to fill up their back of their car or their pickup truck. There are other partners of ours that do bigger donations. So Cooperative Extension in Orange County has a box truck, and Ulster Corps has a van that moves food around. Fortunately, with those relationships, if we do get a big donation, we are able to call on one of them and have things happen here in Sullivan.
Is the food raw, as in produce, things like that, or is it prepared food, or both?
It is a mix of both.
So restaurants are donors, for example?
Restaurants can be donors, although I will tell you the challenge with the restaurants are, and particularly since COVID, is they've sort of scaled back and they're not overproducing, and when they do, they're sending it home with their employees.
So who would be an example of a donor in Sullivan?
A
single
our
bite?
most recent, single bite has been, the school districts. So when they, get to a break and they have extra milk or produce, we've been able to capture that and move that to the agencies.
Yeah.
Yes. Farms donate.
Has there been any discussions or partnership yet with the new regional food bank that's being developed in Montgomery?
I believe there has. I believe there has. The food bank is interesting. They have a network that they work with, and that network gets their food. We sort of we are a fill-in and a supplement. So we know what they're doing, but we work sort of outside of their parameter.
Was there a perceived need for this role that you're trying to fill?
So this, and this was started by the Community Foundations of the Hudson Valley,
Okay.
who was doing some granting to feeding agencies. And one of the things that came out of those discussions was there needed to be a way to better connect extra food and agencies that were looking for food.
So would an agency be like a Meals on Wheels or
Meals on Wheels,
is it trying to get it, in other words, to the end user?
try to get it to the end.
Okay.
Yeah, and more recently, they had these community fridges pop up. Are you
Yes, I've
familiar
seen
with
them.
those? So last week I actually was at a farm that did a donation, and so I brought it to a community fridge in Kingston. I had about 40 pounds of food, and it was fresh food, collards, and Swiss chard, and actually pepper and mint, spearmint, and trying to fit all that in that little refrigerator was a little bit of a challenge, but I made it happen. They arranged.
And then how do
it.
people find out that something's been added to the refrigerator?
I think people, my understanding is people
They
just
just
stop
know.
by, they know
Okay.
that it's there and they're frequent it. Some gentleman was standing behind me as I was stuffing collards in. Any other questions? So we're working hard in Sullivan, we are desperately trying to find more donors. If anyone, we've been trying grocery stores, we've tried some of the restaurants. And there's a lot of people working on this, not just us. So if anybody has any thoughts or
How
ideas, we'd be
strict-
happy.
Are the food handling requirements?
So our volunteers need to take a food safety quiz. It's pretty, I say it's a lot of common sense, you're not gonna leave your food in the closet for 4 hours in 100-degree temperature, stuff kind of like that. And most of the donors understand what the restrictions are, they understand. They very much pay attention to the expiration dates. They understand, that the prepared foods need to be handled in a certain way and, given to us in a certain way, and our donors know they need to get delivered by, a certain amount of time within a window. So we do pay attention to all of that.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's tons of waste in restaurants and
Yeah.
just the devil's in the details and how to get it there, but
Yeah,
it's there, just there.
We've done some guides on, how try to give them some tips on how they could set it up to make it work. We hand those out, but restaurants have been really, really tough to crack. But we try.
Was it deliberate not to put any contact information on
No, it was not delivered at all, sir. I do have a business card.
it? No, I mean, I just don't see phone number, website, contact person.
So for FeedHV, it's feedhv.org.
This is for our purpose here.
Oh, this is not a general brochure that you hand out.
No, this was
No,
for
this
you
is just
all.
a report to you as the
Oh,
funding.
okay, got it. All right.
Mary Ann, on the loans that you're doing, revolving loans, are they like typically like a 5-year revolving loan or?
So we try to tailor them to the business and their needs. So some of them have been 5, some of them have been 7. It really just kind of depends
Some of them have been until you get your grant.
until you get your
I
grant.
mean, and are we ever piggybacking on?
We have one collaborative with.
Because it seems like that we should.
There, I'm on that committee at
Okay.
at HVADC. If there's collaborative opportunity, we'll harvest it. Normally, it's not.
Got it.
Normally, it's somebody who has
a grant from some state or federal agency, but they have to complete their project, so it's a grant they get when they're done.
Right.
So they need the money to get to a point where they're done to get their grant.
Yep.
That's
Got
the
it.
most normal.
Size,
Of the loans. We can do up to 200,000, but right now we're averaging about 100, 90 to 100.
And you have most of the money lent at 3 million that you mentioned?
No,
We do not, we
No.
still have funding to go.
Yeah,
You know, anybody wants a loan. Julio, give me a call.
yeah, we know lots of people that want loans. You don't know anybody who's a qualified borrower. You know, that's a different thing.
We like to talk to all of them.
Yeah.
there you go. Well, it just seems like your program of work has really expanded since the beginning, and it's impressive, really impressive what you're doing.
It certainly has. I got a couple other initiatives if you
Yeah, sure.
have time. So that's sort of our mainstay. Those are the things we do day in and day out. There is some other work that we do. Todd's very involved with a group called the Agricultural Viability Alliance, or AVA. And through the AVA, they've been able to put some interest into the USDA, I would say, for more business technical assistance become available, you know, through their funding opportunities. Todd worked very hard on that with AVA through June of 2021. That included getting 140 agricultural advocacy organizations around the country to petition the USDA to set aside some of the coronavirus money for one-on-one BTA. 50 members of Congress also encouraged the USDA to do that. And that resulted in 2 initiatives. One being the regional food business centers, of which New York is part of the Northeast region. And those business centers are going to provide coordination, technical assistance, capacity building for farmers, ranchers, and other food businesses, and help them navigate federal, state, and local resources. That work is ongoing. They made the announcement. They are now working with each center to finalize the terms of their agreement. So we should know more soon, but it was a big deal to be a part of that regional food center, and we're really happy that they acknowledge the significance and importance of providing these services to our businesses in this region. Somewhat in coordination with that, there's the Hudson Valley Food System Coalition. I'm on the leadership team there. That has been bringing together food producers, distributors, people doing processing, distribution, consumers, and even looking at waste management practices. We applied for, the coalition applied to be part of a USDA community of practice. Out of 50 applications, we were one of the 11 selected to participate. So we've been going through an 18-month really sort of research project led by Ohio State University with support from Johns Hopkins and Colorado State University. I was just in Columbus, Ohio in May, very exciting Columbus, Ohio. They brought us all together. It was nice to meet everybody that had been participating on the phone. These are groups from across the country, from Boston out to Washington State. They are all regional entities, you know, looking at this, some cross counties like ours does, some cross states like the one in Minnesota. So it was really interesting. Everyone seems to be struggling with some similar issues of stakeholder engagement, and including from, you know, politicians, you know, down to the people actually doing the work. And sort of a little bit struggling with, you know, how they're all organized. Some of them have kind of a loose affiliation, some of them have more of a formal affiliation. Hudson Valley Food System Coalition is relatively new. We started right before the pandemic, and then took a little bit of a hiatus. So we're still trying to navigate the organizational structure. So it was a great opportunity. Got a couple more here for you. The meat processing expansion grant that the New York State has put out, a $5 million program. HVADC is administrator for the program statewide. We have 35 applications for a request of 6.8 million, of which we don't have 6.8 million, and in projects totaling more than 12.5 million. There's one application from Sullivan County, and 5 in the Hudson Valley region, and I think could serve Sullivan County producers. So we hope to be making announcements on that, maybe late August, early September. We've done a completeness review on the applications. Now we're getting ready to send them to the review committee. So we will keep you posted on that.
Pricing,
I'm sorry.
pricing, how the loan's priced.
So this is a grant from the state, and they can get up to $250,000 for their project.
What do they have to pay for that? What's the pricing?
So it's not a loan. They don't have to pay anything other than they have to do the administrative work to have a grant with it.
So this is grant money.
This is grant money. Now, HVADC is willing to come in and do one of those bridge loans if somebody needs that to happen. So we keep our eye on that, but that's all grant money from New York State. And the last thing I wanted to touch
New
on.
York has so much money. Yeah.
With some of the work that we're doing in the equity space, and I bring this up because of the CDFI. It is part of what we need to do with the CDFI is address communities of color and underserved communities, of which farmers of color are one. So we've done a couple things. In 22, we did the business of cannabis, which was a virtual masterclass. And that ran people through everything from what the state is currently doing with licensing to production and marketing. It was a 2-day virtual event. You can still see it online. We had partners with folks like Tamika Dunkley of Season Gives and John Gilstrap, both who serve on our CDFI advisory board. And those folks were closely with business and nonprofit leaders and are influential in fostering equity and diversity. I was able to participate. I was able to talk to people about business technical assistance, opportunities for those who are looking for land, how they can find resources if they want to own land and farm in the Hudson Valley. It was a good session, and I was on with a couple of farmers. Through our EDA lending, we were able to participate in what they are calling their equity lending leaders. Again, this was sort of a national cohort. We had 12 online sessions, and they kind of walked you through this toolkit of how do you figure out what your goals are, how do you reach those communities. They talked about marketing. They encouraged us to review our underwriting, which I was happy to say our underwriting met a lot of the criteria that they were looking at. So, and they also encouraged us to go out and conduct some interviews. So Dwayne Stanton and I, he's our business services coordinator, have been out talking with farmers and food business owners about, what are their challenges and if there's anything that we can do to address them getting access to technical assistance and funding. We've got an upcoming networking event where one of the things we heard from some of the folks is they'd like to work with a service provider from their own community. So we're doing a networking event with Tamika Dunkley, I mentioned earlier. She's bringing in some folks, and we're going to tell them what HVADC does and how we do it and encourage them to sign on as a service provider so we can diversify our service providers as well. And lastly, this is going to go back to Feed HV. Scenic Hudson made a donation with us last year, and we were able to take that donation and buy produce from 9 farms owned by persons of color. We purchased over 6,000 pounds of food that went to 20 different agencies. The important part about that is, though, the state came out with a grant called New York Food for New York Families that wanted you to do exactly what we had just done in the fall. And we were able to write that up and get a $50,000 grant. And so we're waiting for a state contract, but we're in the process of trying to implement that. Right now, we have 20 farms that we've identified that we can work with that are interested in participating. And Scenic Hudson came back to us and said, we're going to give you another donation. And so we're going to use that money to try to purchase proteins, because that's the most expensive piece of that project. So we're going to try to put proteins in.
How many employees now?
So we have 2 full-time and 4 part-time.
That's it?
Mhm.
Jesus. That's incredible what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for Mary Ann? Because I know we have a very full agenda, but I want to make sure everybody gets whatever they need, so because we have a resolution, we're gonna be asked to.
For the funding, you mean, for the
For,
resolutions for the funding?
yes, we fund HVAC and I believe the resolution, is that
Yeah.
next?
Yeah, it's next.
So should just do that,
So
right?
I have one question.
Yeah.
It's a 5-year ask.
In the past, the commitment has been in 3-year cycles.
Right, that's what I thought, yeah.
HVAC has been asking funding agencies that have been involved in the long term to increase the timing to 5 years. It helps them on the planning side. It doesn't bind you to anything here because you have to approve it once a year anyway. But from their standpoint, it looks better in terms of their projections for other things like grants for the Novo Foundation, for example. The more they're able to show as locally sourced revenue, the easier it is for them to get grants.
So I'll move it.
Right, so just to let everybody know what the resolution is, so we have a resolution in the packet that is,
Don't slow them down.
well, just to be technical, so we get it right, that there are, so the ask is that we will commit to a $30,000 contribution for each of the next 5 years, with a total being $150,000. So your motion was Ed, and
second.
Kathleen was second,
All
Paul was
Gotta give him
second,
credit.
okay,
And it's subject, the 30,000 is subject to annual approval by the board.
thank you. So with that edification, all in favor, say aye. Aye, any opposed? Okay, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You're
We
doing great
can't do
work.
all this without the kind of support that we get from Sullivan County, so we very much appreciate it.
Well, considering we're one of the counties probably with some of the greatest need, it's great what you're doing. Yeah, so thank you
very
much.
much. I'm also gonna leave behind, in case anybody's interested, this is a list of the businesses that we have worked with, so I'll just leave that there if you would like to take it.
And it sounds like, John, at some point, there's some follow-up, maybe when you think about the county's revolving loan fund and what we're doing, that for you and Mary Ann,
Would happy.
I haven't been seeing a lot of farm requests.
Yeah. But it may be now that we know what's out there, and when you're out and about and you hear of situations, we'll be able to be more. Coming out with it as opposed to waiting to be asked. Right. So, okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna move on to the next agenda item, if I can see it without my glasses.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Thank you.
We have, I believe the next resolution is the Monticello Industrial Park LLC, which is requesting extension for sales tax redemption. Anybody want to tell us about that?
It's just an extension.
Just the three-
It's an extension, there's-
6-month extension.
Very little activity that I'm aware of there, Jen.
Right.
Oh, no, they're not spending, you mean, they're not.
They're not building the industrial park yet.
I see.
They're trying to find potential tenants.
Makes sense.
Right.
Hey, build it and they'll come, right?
Just watch that movie yesterday. Dreams. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the extension? Anybody second? Ed, all in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we next have. Are we gonna do them one by one? I guess we have Delaware River Solar, which is seeking to amend the pilot agreement.
These are being handled by Will Frank as counsel for the agency
Mhm.
because I'm doing some work on one of these projects for Delaware River Solar, so Jen can take you through the reasoning. I can help by backfilling the history of 575B of the real property tax law, if anybody cares. But Kathleen's now an expert on that as well.
Oh, yeah. Learning.
And you circulated your worksheet and everything already.
Yes.
Or didn't you?
Yes, and so we discussed this last month, and the proposed resolutions adjust the pilot payments exactly in the fashion that we discussed last month, so. So we have the figures in the pilot agreements as currently constructed. Due to changes in the assessment model that the assessors now have to use, the taxes, the pilots for these 3 projects would exceed the taxes in some cases by a lot. these three projects have not yet made pilot payments to the taxing jurisdictions. They won't until 2025. It's not as if the taxing jurisdictions have been receiving this much and now will receive this much. So the three companies calculated their pilot payments using the assessment model and asked if we would use a pilot figure that is midway between that break-even pilot, as they call it, and the pilots in the current agreements. So that's what we have here. So that just briefly for New York Thompson 3, the pilot payment in the current agreement is $24,000 a year. And so the proposed change that's before you today is to drop that to $19,014 a year. For New York Liberty 2, the change would be from $12,000 a year to $8,004 a year. For New York Mammocating 1, the difference is really small. It would be a change from $25,500 a year to $24,487.50 a year. And the resolutions really describe the history that we talked about last month as well.
So wait, are there 4 with Delaware River Solar?
There's 3 with Delaware River Solar, and there's one other that's in the same situation, but it's owned by a different.
The New York Mammocating is the,
Mammocating is Delaware River Solar.
oh, that's the same name.
Liberty, Mammocating, and Thompson are the 3 Delaware.
Got it. Okay.
And one of the, I believe it was Mammocating, the year got pushed back because
They're
it's
not
gonna
complete.
be, they're all going to start paying in 2025.
Right.
So one of them, there was some changes to the plan, so they went back to the planning board, Mammocating, and then pushed back the projected start date. And obviously, they're calculated based on capacity that they're gonna be operating. Yeah, the plant capacity.
Does I know we spoke to Carol.
Can we move one?
Yes. you
You're
can.
moving all 3, right?
You're gonna
Carol?
move all 3, Carol. Okay, can someone?
I'll second.
Okay, Kathleen second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you.
What you should expect next is there's another 12 projects in the county.
I think there are 13.
I think there's 12 others because the Bethel landfill project is in this class, but hasn't responded, right?
They're not quite like this.
Okay, there's
They've
more,
already started.
there's more, and fixing this with Will and Jen. They're gonna want those amended as well. The alternative is they could just say, we terminate. But because there's been like the town of X getting some money and probably budgeted that.
Yeah.
We're expecting to tell them, whoever owns the project, that it's gonna change, but a 1-year delay in changing it so that it won't screw up.
Some notice.
So it won't screw up somebody's budget.
Yeah.
In small towns, it would. Bigger towns, maybe not.
It wouldn't, it probably doesn't mean anything necessarily in any of the towns, because it's not much money, but it just seems different than somebody who's never paid a payment to be in.
Right. Okay. Good to know. All right, should we move on? We now have 3 loans that are seeking approval. 2 are the micro entrepreneur assistance program loans, 1 is the revolving loan. Do we want to do them each separately or do we?
I think we need to do them separately,
Separately, okay.
and I'd like to rely on Julio to start out with, at least on. You want to start with 2 Queens?
Sure. The 2 Queens is the coffee roaster in Narrowsburg. They're seeking to expand their operation and move to the former Rasmussen Furniture Building on that sustained fire several years ago. And it's now being completed. They're seeking $46,000 and the RMAP committee.
So as a new board member, I just want to say that I loved this because it gave me everything I needed to know. I haven't seen one yet since I just started. And I think this is fantastic. So I just want to, gives you everything you need to know. It was perfect.
Sometimes the rest of us are too close to it, having seen them.
Well,
for
and so,
years.
right, and it's no
So
disrespect to you guys,
Yeah,
but it
no.
was like, I actually feel like
We
I,
like the
on this.
validation and or the constructive, ways we
Yeah.
can improve it.
No,
So
this
that's
was- fantastic.
What I want to make sure everyone is aware of with respect to the first two of these loans, 2 queens and 3 francs, is these were originally approved by the county revolving loan fund.
we saw that.
And I think John asked and Jen made a recommendation that we charge a smaller admin fee and handle attorney's fees differently. So closing notes, if approved, number 3 would change on that page. And tell me what it should be so that Kathleen will understand all of it up to the minute. I think the 2% admin fee of $920 would become $460, correct?
Correct.
And I don't know what you decided on attorney's fees.
That the agency would cover half of the attorney's fees.
So it'll be $250
That's
from
nice.
them and $250. My only comment I made about that accommodation was we probably should be doing that on everyone going forward so that we're not bouncing up and down all over the place.
It's nice to be consistent.
So. And I'll have an update for you when we get there on the county level also, so.
Okay.
So I have a question. What is there an unconventional nature of these businesses that prohibit them from going to a regular financing?
Yes,
They've been rejected.
they've either been rejected or we haven't put them to the trouble of getting rejected.
The RMAT program doesn't require denial, so it doesn't hurt the borrower's credit. But if they've sought funding elsewhere.